André Rieu, often called the King of the Waltz, is one of the most famous violinists and conductors in the world. For decades, his concerts have drawn millions of fans who admire not only his music, but also the joy and energy he brings to the stage. Yet, behind the lights, applause, and worldwide success, there is a story filled with pain, struggles, and battles that almost ended his career. Many people see Rieu as a smiling entertainer who makes classical music fun and exciting, but very few know about the difficult path he had took to get here. Born on October 1 St. 1949 in Maastricht, Netherlands, André was raised in a very strict household. His father, also named André, was a respected conductor, but at home heralded with fear. There was little warmth or affection in the family. Rieu himself has admitted that his parents never showed him love. His mother valued discipline and academic success above all else. While imagination and creativity were seen as weaknesses, growing up in such an environment left young André feeling lonely and misunderstood. However, when he was only 5 years old, he met a violin teacher who treated him differently. She encouraged him to play with emotion, to feel the music instead of simply following the rules. This experience opened a new world for André. Through the violin, he found freedom, expression, and a voice that he did not have at home. This discovery planted the seed for the musical journey that would later change his life forever. During his teenage years, André's love for waltzers began to grow. Unlike many classical musicians who focused on strict concert traditions, André was attracted to the beauty and emotional power of the waltz. Unfortunately, his father disapproved. He considered waltzes too light, too sentimental, and not serious enough for a professional musician. This created deep conflict at home. André's father believed in strict orchestral discipline, while André wanted to create music that touched people's hearts. The rejection from his family became even more painful when André met Marjorie, the woman who would later become his wife and strongest supporter. His mother opposed their relationship, adding more pressure on him. One night, after his mother ordered Marjorie to leave, André made a life-changing decision. He walked out of his home and never returned. From that day forward, he built his own life without the support of his parents. They never attended his concerts, not even after he became world famous. André later admitted that he spent years in therapy trying to understand the emptiness of his childhood. Despite all the fame and applause, the lack of love from his parents left a wound that musical one could not fully heal. Yet, instead of giving up, André used this pain as fuel. Music became his escape, his passion and his lifeline. Through every note he played, he found a way to express what words could not. By the late 1970s, André had gone through years of formal music training, performing in orchestras, and gaining professional experience. But he felt that traditional concerts were too rigid and distant from audience. He wanted something different, something that made music feel alive, joyful, and connected to people. In 1978, he started a small group called the Maastricht Salon Orchestra. It was made up of just 12 musicians who shared his dream. They performed at weddings, small halls, and even community gatherings. Unlike big orchestras, this group was about sharing music with ordinary people. At the heart of it all was Marjorie, who quietly handled the business side, bookings, and even helped arrange the music. Without her, André admitted later, none of it would have been possible. In 1987, he took an even bigger step and founded the Johann Strauss Orchestra. It was again small at first, but it carried a bold mission to bring back the beauty of waltz music and make it popular again. They broke away from traditions. No black-tail coats, no stiff formality. Instead, they wore colorful outfits and smiled on stage. Their concerts were filled with light, laughter, and energy. Critics dismissed them as unserious, even mocking them by calling their shows musical entertainment instead of real art. But audiences loved it. In fact, They loved it so much that by the 1990s, André and his orchestra were selling millions of albums worldwide. Their breakthrough came when they performed at the UEFA Champions League final in Indiana in 1995. As the music filled the stadium, even football fans were moved to clap and sway. Overnight, André Rieu became a household name. He had achieved what many thought was impossible, turning waltz music into a global phenomenon. Paragraph 4 approximately equals 360 words. Success did not come without criticism. While millions of fans adored André Rieu, many traditional classical musicians and critics looked down on his style. They argued that his concerts were too flashy, too joyful, and lacked the seriousness of real classical music. Some even went as far as calling it musical pornography, suggesting that André was cheapening the art form by mixing bright lights, colorful gowns, and humor with classical music. But for the audiences, especially families, older generations, and those who usually felt excluded from traditional classical concerts, Rieu's shows meant everything. His performances were not just about music. They were about creating a feeling of happiness, unity, and celebration. As André himself once said, "With us, you don't feel the solemn hush that drives people away." Instead of making audiences sit stiffly in silence, he invited them to laugh, dance, and cry. His concerts became events where people felt at home, connected not only to the music, but also to each other. By its late E.J. Joel S., André was filling stadiums around the world. In Australia, more than 38,000 people attended one of his shows, a number that most pop stars would be proud of. At one point, he even had 8 of the top 10 best-selling DVDs in the country. This incredible success proved that his vision was right. Music was meant to be enjoyed, not feared. While critics kept complaining, André focused on the people who mattered most, his fans. For them, his concerts were not just entertainment. They were life-changing experiences that brought joy to difficult times. Behind all the success, however, André's health began to suffer. In 2010, at the height of his career, he was struck by a severe viral infection that attacked his inner ear. For most people, such an illness would be uncomfortable, but for a violinist, it was devastating. The infection affected his balance, leaving him dizzy and unable to perform. For someone who had built his entire life on stage, this was more than just sickness. Felt like his world was collapsing. Tours had to be canceled, shows were postponed, and fans were left heartbroken. André, who had always been strong and full of energy, suddenly found himself bedridden and vulnerable. Doctors advised rest, but recovery was slow and frustrating. Traditional treatments didn't work, and for months, he struggled with constant vertigo. The man who once commanded entire stadiums with confidence now found it difficult to even stand without feeling the room spin. What saved him surprisingly was a letter from a fan in Australia who had gone through the same illness. The fan shared special vestibular exercises that helped him recover. Desperate, André tried the man slowly. Step by step, his balance returned. After months of struggle, he was able to return to the stage. His comeback was celebrated not just as a musical achievement, but as a story of resilience. However, the experience left scars. André admitted that the infection never completely disappeared and that his equilibrium remained a weak point. Every performance carried a hidden risk. The man who had once seemed unstoppable was now aware of his limits, and it changed the way he looked at his career forever. Just as he was recovering from illness, tragedy struck in 2016. During a tour in the United Kingdom, André received the devastating news that his close friend and trombonist, Ruud Merckx, had passed away in his sleep. For André, this was not just the loss of a colleague, but the loss of a brother. The Johann Strauss Orchestra had always been more than just a group of musicians. It was a family. Each member shared years of experiences, travels, and performances together, Losing one often felt like losing a piece of that family. Without hesitation, André cancelled the rest of the shows in Nottingham, London, Birmingham, and Glasgow. For him, continuing the tour while carrying such grief was impossible. In interviews later, he admitted how deeply the loss affected him. The concerts eventually resumed, but they carried a new weight. Joyful melodies were still there, but behind them was a layer of sorrow that only those closest to André could truly see. This period showed fans another side of the maestro, a man capable of deep vulnerability and emotion. Even in grief, he turned to music, using it as a way to heal and to honor the memory of his friend. Yet, the burden was heavy, and the years that followed tested him again. In 2019, he caught a severe flu, but still went on stage, hiding his pain behind his usual smile. Those who knew him could tell he was struggling, but his commitment to his fans never wavered. What many did not realize was that each performance was becoming more and more demanding on his health. The glamorous image of the king of the waltz often hid the reality of a man fighting battles off stage that few could see. One of the most remarkable aspects of André Rieu's journey is how he transformed not only classical music, but also the business of live performance. Before him, classical concerts were usually restricted to opera houses and theaters, often with formal dress codes and an intimidating atmosphere. But André broke these boundaries. He brought the elegance of Vienna to football stadiums, public squares, and open-air arenas, creating a unique blend of tradition and modern showmanship. This was not only a musical revolution, but also a financial one. By the early 2000s, his tours were among the most profitable in the world,